students, welcome to this unit, Forms of Speeches. Up to this point, you've already made a remarkable progress by grasping several critical skills, including audience analysis, organizing, making an argument, using language, and image creation. You might be wondering how these skills will lead to successful speech making. This chapter is meant to prepare you for different forms of speeches. I'm very glad to be here to help you apply the skills that you've just acquired, so that you will be more adept at using them. Let's get started by making a list of forms of speech first. Generally speaking, speeches can be divided into three categories: informative speech, persuasive speech, and special occasion speech. Yet, there is another form of speech, self-introduction. You can also see it as a special form of informative speech, since it is a kind of speech informing the audience of yourself. It is so prevalent in our everyday life that most people don't realize that it counts as a speech. But here, I would like to single it out, since it is often used in many occasions. In this lecture, I will explain the purpose of self-introduction and what information you can include in such a speech. Then, I will give you some suggestions on how to make an impressive self-introduction. Finally, we will watch an introductory speech by an art therapist to see how she has applied the principles in her speech and leave a deep impression on us. As a college student, perhaps the first speech you ever faced was to give an introduction about yourself. Maybe you had done it as part of your college entrance examination. Or maybe you were asked to do it in the first meeting of a new course as an ice-breaking activity. Interviews, whatever the occasion is, always require self-introduction. What makes self-introduction special is you are supposed to present information about someone that you are so familiar with, yourself. But that doesn't mean you can nail it down easily. The purpose of a self-introduction is to take what is considered as a simple task and make it more formal, so as to make a good first impression upon your audience. And this is exactly what a self-introduction is meant to achieve. Therefore, it's totally worthwhile to work on the know-how. All the techniques for general use speech can be applied here. But among all, the most important is to make sure you understand the specific circumstance and form a purpose for this self-introduction speech. Other factors you need to take into account are the setting, audience size, time limit, and etc. The self-introduction for job interview is certainly different from that of making friends on campus, since showing your qualification for a position and connecting with people require very different manners. What's more, circumstance will determine the right way you are expected to define yourself. In professional settings like interviews and business meeting, you will be expected to focus on your current position as well as previous experiences. Anecdotes are welcome only when they are used to support your main points. So, revealing your real character in a freestyle self-introduction might not be the best tactic. In terms of audience size, the principle is, the larger the audience, the more formal your speech must be. So, the advice is to always adjust your speech to the audience. And please remember this. Keep your self-introduction within the time limit. In order to achieve this, always rehearse ahead of time and keep track of the time when you are introducing yourself. Regardless of the occasion, self-introduction always starts with greetings. Next, you will give your name and location. You may also want to briefly mention your cultural background if you think it really matters and can define your characters. If you are to speak in an on-campus setting, you might want to tell the audience which year you're in. You can also add the subject that you are studying and the course that you are taking. If this is a job interview, you can show your qualification like awards that you won and your intern experiences. If this information is already in your resume, you can explain what you've learned during your internship. If you're introducing yourself in a less formal situation where you want to make friends, you may want to talk about your family and hobbies. Other than these basics, do you know how to make an unforgettable self-introduction? Here are some tips. 1. Instead of simply stating your job title, you can go further to describe it, or go deeper to explore its meaning and impact. For example, as an editor, you can say, I'm an editor. My job is critical in many fields including film, video, magazine, newspaper, blog, and book. I polish and I refine. I cut out what doesn't fit or not essential. And I'm an enhancer. I make sure that the product is the best in the time available and with the resources available. If you're still a student right now, you can think of a word that reveals the nature of your future job or the major that you're pursuing. Tip number 2. Imagine yourself as a problem solver and help your listener discover your unique story and qualification. For example, people usually say, I'm a lawyer who specializes in inheritance. You could say, as a lawyer who focuses on inheritance, I'm helping people to pass on their properties to their offspring safely. In this way, your target audience will easily notice your value and they may more likely to ask advice from you. Tip number 3. Be yourself. Most of the time, we don't talk about our personality or characteristics to an unknown audience. But in self-introduction, you can take a chance and reveal something honest about yourself. Since the audience is looking for the suitable person, use phrases such as, I'm really passionate about, or what excites me the most about what I do is this and that. In this way, you can communicate your emotion and enthusiasm. Last but not least, if possible, you can inject some humor elements in your self-introduction. Sometimes humor can help you impress your audience and even make you stand out. After you've crafted your unique self-introduction, practice it on several people you knew well. Then, a few days later, ask them, what do you remember most about my introduction? Their few days later response will tell you what is most memorable about you, what you could alter, and what you might try to lean into when meeting new people. You may find that coming up with an authentic, personal introduction leads to deeper revelations in your life. We all want to learn and figure out why we matter on this planet and in this life. And it can start with a better self-introduction. Remember, because self-introduction can be expected in various occasions, you'd better have one fully prepared. Now let's see one example that can illustrate the points that I've made so far in this section. Hello, my name is Margaret. I live in Los Angeles, and my background is graphic design. In the past few years, I have been working as an art therapist because I want to use art to inspire people to explore their inner feelings. I believe that to some extent, most people are like a shell in dormancy, waiting for your talent or the gift to come out of that hard shell. What I just shared with you is the initial part of a presentation. It starts with the speaker's self-introduction. The speaker gives the basics very briefly and then moves to talk about her job as an art therapist. Since this is not a commonplace profession, she had to explain it. But she didn't give a textbook definition like, It is a creative process of producing artwork to help people deal with stress and anxiety. Instead, she used a metaphor to describe people who are experiencing negative emotions, lacking social skills and self-esteem. So, as people say, you can never get a second chance to make a first impression. First impressions are always being formed, and they are nearly impossible to be undone. Therefore, use what we've covered in this section and be well prepared.